Welcome back to KOAN Hot Talk, 1080 AM, 95.1 FM, The Joe Miller Show. We're honored to have with us Scott Wesley Brown. He's a CCM singer and songwriter, recorded for Sparrow Records. He's recorded, I think, 24 albums, been covered by songs, Petra, Pat Boone, Sandy Patty, Amy Grant, worked with Promise Keepers, Campus Crusade for Christ, wrote a song basically responding to Richard Dawkins' atheistic book, The God Delusion. We played that last segment. We'll have that podcast up later, hopefully today or tomorrow, so you can listen to it if you missed that segment. And Scott, we were talking during the break about your concern of the ongoing jihad in the United States of America. Can you explain?
Well, I believe that ISIS is a threat, and I believe that Islam is a threat. And as I began to pray about how do we respond to this thing, and started reading and doing research and just being on my knees, I discovered something that I think is even more of a serious jihad that is taking place, not only in our country but around the world. But in America, it just doesn't seem like it fits, and that is what I would call the Neopagan jihad. It's not an Islamic jihad; it's a Neopagan jihad, which just has more people involved with it than ISIS could ever dream of having. When Richard Dawkins is talking about becoming a secular Christian, it's kind of interesting because he believes in secularism and there is no God, but he likes the traditions and all of the nostalgia of religion. But at the same time, in America, there's this knee-jerk reaction against that. The people are leaving the church. We've got statistics by various polling agencies that tell us that the boomers are leaving the church, the millennials are leaving the church, and a lot of people, the new mantra in the West is, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. That's kind of different from where Dawkins is coming from. He's taking one step in one direction, but so many people in our nation are taking a step in a different direction. And I really believe that's kind of the result of what I call the Neopagan jihad, or the rise of Neopaganism, the worship of the earth, or earth religions. Christianity, and if you just give me a second to kind of explain something, Christianity is a system that we call twoism. And what I mean by twoism is that God is outside of us, that God is transcendent, he's beyond and superior to the created order. But today's popular cult is the cult of oneism, that God is within. And we've got the movement that the number one God, all is one. Everything is divine. There is no external God. Spirituality is in ourselves and in the universe around us. Where twoism, what we would believe as Christians, sees two kinds of reality, that there are distinctions that God has made. There is a God, a creator, and there is creation. There is male and female. There is adults and children. But what oneism does, and as you can begin to see the breakdown in America of all these different systems, and I've tried to figure it out, what is going on here? Oneism is a blurring of distinctions. It's a blurring of all the distinctions that God has made. You can see this happening in our culture by things like the extreme environmental movement, the LGBT movement, gender-neutral stores and restrooms and schools now, globalism. Everything's moving toward this oneness, that there is no distinction between male and female. They're moving toward no distinction between adults and children, and no distinction between man and creation. That even in Europe, there are certain European countries that have laws that give plant life the same protection as human life. So they sort of bring plant life up and human life down to the same level. And, I know we see a lot of this stuff maybe perhaps happening in our government, but it's a spiritual thing that is happening. It's not just a political thing. Twoism believes that there are two kinds of people, those who are for God and those who are against God, and there's no neutral ground. Jesus said in Luke that you're either for me or against me. Matthew, he points out the difference between the goats and the lambs. There's this twoist notion in what I'm saying, and the one has come along and say, no, humanity is one. All the religions are one. They believe that, for example, each religion has some of the truth. So if we somehow kind of bring them together, we'll discover real spirituality. I don't know if you have it up in Alaska, but I always see down here in California that bumper sticker that says coexist. Have you seen that? It's got it's got the cross on it, the Star of David, and the crescent, and then yin yang, and several different symbols of different world religions and beliefs. And the kind of the thought behind all of that is we're one. We're all one. So you've got this idea that all is one, humanity is one, religions are one, and it's the blurring of distinctions. And then if you go to Romans and you read that great passage that Paul writes about how talking about the exchange, that why God's wrath has been revealed against men, it's because of this exchange that they make. And he mentions three kinds of exchanges, that they exchanged the glory of God for images, and then they exchanged the knowledge about God for a lie, and then they exchanged the natural for the unnatural. And we can see that going on in our culture today, how we've exchanged the glory of God for images, or through environmentalism or spirit worship or nature worship. I mean, they've got these festivals going on in the world. They have some here in California, in the desert in Nevada. There's one called the Burning Man Festival, where 53,000 people get out together for a whole week. They build a temporary city, and they worship the earth. In Belgium, there's the Tomorrowland Festival, and it's coming to Atlanta, Georgia this coming fall. 350,000 people from all over Europe come to this festival called Tomorrowland. It's a Neopagan festival where they worship nature. And it's interesting that if you look at Time magazine just a few years ago, the headline from Time magazine was this: "Are we becoming a Hindu nation?" I mean, that's incredible. Are we becoming a Hindu nation? Now, it's saying that we're not necessarily functionally a Hindu nation, but our thought process is starting to become, Hindu, because Hinduism allows a person to design his own worship. You can worship the way you want to worship. I can worship the way I want to worship. Not the way God designed us to worship, not the biblical way of worship, but you kind of make up your own worship. And being the oldest traditional religion in the world, it believes that we have no real self, that everything is just an illusion, but we are divine. And so you see the rise of yoga in America. You see it, and we've been battling it down here in Southern California in the school system. There's been a court case taking place in Encinitas where lawyers, Christian lawyers have gone into the courts to try to stop the schools from this yoga initiative that is taking place in our public schools. My granddaughter was forced to take yoga until we went to the school and said, we don't want her doing that. And the thing is when they presented this case, they presented it to the judge here in San Diego County about yoga being a religion. It's not just this little nice exercise and breathing kind of exercise that kids do or adults do to be at peace, but it is actually attached to a religion called Hinduism. And the judge in the court case agreed with him. Yes, this is a religion, but then his decision was, but as long as the kids don't know that, we're going to allow yoga to continue in our public school system. So virtually every school down here has yoga. And here's the scary thing. Churches have it under the guise of Christian yoga. So you got all these people yoking themselves, which is what yoga means. They're yoking themselves to an impersonal spiritual substance that is one with nature and one with the cosmos. I mean, this is pantheism here in our public schools and seeping under the front door of the church. And everything is God. Everything that
try to teach the Bible in the school and see where that gets you.
Oh yeah, you can't go in and have prayer, but then you can have yoga. But there's a former Brahmin priest, and that's the highest priest you can be in Hinduism, a guy named Ravi Maharishi. He became a Christian. He wrote a book called Death of a Guru, and I would encourage people to get this, Death of a Guru. And he said, you can't have Hinduism without yoga, and you can't have yoga without Hinduism. Now, should we put that that banner in our churches?
Yeah,
it's really scary what's going on. So, we've exchanged the glory of God for images, all of these positions that people put themselves in. That is connecting yourself to these supposedly Hindu deities. Now, just because we don't know, it's like if I were to take a drug, well, just because I don't know it's heroin doesn't mean I should take it.
Right.
I mean, just because I don't know I'm going to get stoned, I mean, that's kind of ridiculous thought with this judge is thinking. And then Paul goes on to exchange the knowledge about God for a lie. Well, then, there again, you've got, the whole evolutionary movement, and all that Dawkins has been pushing and saying, and secular humanism and mythology, Satanism, occultism, higher consciousness movement, holistic health movements, astrology, numerology. I mean, we are living in the age of Aquarius. As if anyone remembers that old play Hair back from the 60s. I mean, it's kind of like the 60s has been transported to 2015. And we're living through all of this in the United States. And then it goes on to say they exchanged the natural for the unnatural. And, of course, we know what we're talking about there. I just read recently in Thailand there was a three-way homosexual marriage between three gay men. A three-way marriage. So people are saying, well, this is all, we just want civil unions. Now we want marriage licenses, and it's all about taxes and all of this stuff. No, it's a movement. And I think anybody would be kidding themselves if they didn't realize that this is a movement, a nefarious movement that has an agenda. And where is it going to lead? Is it going to lead?
Well, there are no natural limits to it. I mean, if you don't have an accepted, agreed upon value base, then there is no limit. And that's been an argument made a long time against the homosexual marriage movement, is that where do you stop? If you don't have a natural limit, it leads to polygamy, it leads to bestiality. You've got all this other garbage that comes in because there is no natural limit. And people that rationally look at it understand that as well. And where does it take us? Some would suggest to a place very similar to historical places that have suffered significant destruction, at least according to the Bible, as a result of those type of choices. Now, you mentioned the Neopaganist movement. And, of course, you talked about Hinduism, the connection to yoga. What do you see as far as the direct connection to pagan religions to this movement that's going on in the United States now?
Well, I mean, it's just a revival of it. I mean, when you look at some of the ancient Egyptian religions or Babylonian religions, it all came from the earth religions and the gods and goddesses. There was even one professor at our seminary that was taking all of the gods and goddesses, and he made a direct link to all of these different pagan religions that who they were actually worshiping was Eve. And Eve was never meant to be worshipped. And it's amazing, and you've got, of course, in the Roman culture and the Greek gods and the worship of Diana and Ephesus and all of these female deities, and most of us sit there and go, well, that sounds kind of like the New Age. Well, see, the New Age, that's kind of an old term. People don't use that term anymore, but it is. We are living in this age of neopaganism, and you've got Wicca, and you've got all of these different occultic groups that are rising, and I don't have all the statistics in front of me. There's too many, but if you Google this stuff, you can see how widespread this is.
Yeah, we even had a women's shelter, at least up in Fairbanks. There may have been others in the state that was entitled Wicca. I mean, they used an acronym that was not obviously directly connected to the ancient religion of Wicca, but obviously the parallel was intended. Scott, I really appreciate your insights, really appreciate your music. Keep up the good fight. We look forward to maybe reading a little bit about you on Restoring Liberty, our blog. Would love to have some of your articles there. Please stay in contact.
I absolutely will. Thank you. God bless.
Blessings to you as well. Stay with us. The Joe Miller Show, back with you in a few.